What's up, folks? Just want to show you a few things I'm doing to the new Keezer. I'm very pleased with it so far, but there are a few things, a couple of things that I'm going to do, and a couple of things I've already done that I haven't shown you. Uh, since I've shown you the finished product, I have neatened up the wiring as far as the temperature probe and all, and I also installed a little DC computer fan in the lid to keep the air circulating. I did that because there was such a variance in temperature between the bottom and the top of the Keezer, and I've read and some people love having a fan in them to keep the air circulating and some people don't, but I tried it and I think it works really well. It's keeping everything, like I say, moving around, keeping the temperature equal throughout the Keezer, I believe, from top to bottom. There's the little DC fan, just a little simple computer fan. I had 3 or 4 of them laying around, probably out of power supplies or just case fans or whatever, but basically just took an old wall wart, DC wall wart that's back there somewhere. I think it was a 9-volt output. This is a 12-volt fan, so it just runs probably a little slower than what it normally would, but it's fine. But connected to the wall wart, cut the end of the connector off the wall wart. Just ran the wire through the same hole that my temperature probe was in, and as you can see, I've got everything kind of towards the back here, and had some little hooks I just screwed in the wood and wire tied everything. So and I got some spacers and just put some screws through went right through the plastic, just enough to hold it. And of course, when the lid shuts, that's pointing down. And I got my probe over here in the corner and put a big washer on the end of it, and just wire tied it to it so it'll hang down all the way towards the bottom. One thing I have noticed though is this Johnson controller that I'm using, and if any of you have the Johnson controller, you know what I'm talking about, but it has a function on there called the anti-short delay cycle, I think. So let me look at my little paper here. Anti-short cycle delay, ASD, I think is what it comes up on your controller when you get to that option, and it basically has a setting from 0 to 12, and what that does is it won't let your refrigerator or freezer, whatever you got plugged into it, cycle too much. If, for instance, if it's not regulating temperature correctly and it wants to cut on every 2 minutes, you can set that setting up to at least 12 minutes to where, for instance, when the freezer satisfies the temperature and maybe in 5 minutes the temperature has already risen to where it needs to cut back on, that controller setting won't allow it to for at least 12 minutes, and that just kind of helps your compressor not to run so much. And since I've got this going and got my temperature regulated and the fan in, I've noticed that mine runs quite a bit. It's cycling more than I would like for it to. Basically, it's cycling every 12 minutes, which is as much as I will let it. I know it's an older freezer, and I know it's probably not as energy efficient as some. I've got good insulation up here in the lid, so there's really not much more I could do up here unless I added some, but it'd be kind of hard to do. Maybe add some in here in these recess spots. And everything was sealed real good around the edges with silicone. So I've realized and read, and I kind of knew that wood's not a really good insulation, but I was going to see how it went before I've done anything. I had said I wasn't going to put in insulation on the inside of this, but I've changed my mind. I am going to insulate this thing today on the inside, probably with a couple pieces of foam insulation, and I'll show you what I'm doing in there in my little workroom here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you what was going on in here. So I'm going to get the lid shut on this thing, and then I'll show you what I got going on with the foam. Okay, basically what I did was went to Lowe's and bought something that I already had bought and taken back, because I was going to use this in the lid back when I was, redoing the lid and all, and didn't use it, but ended up taking it back. Now I went back and got it again because it's going to work good for this collar insulation. Basically is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pack. I've already got one out. 6 pack of foam, and I don't know the exact size of it. Those foam sheets, and basically I'm going to use that to cut down. The 2x4 is 3.5 inches, and then you've got the space for the seal, which is like a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go right at 3 7/8, almost 4 inches. Make sure I have my lid. Make sure I don't make it too thick to where my lid doesn't close down and hit the foam. But that's going to cover the inside. And the way I'm cutting it, I don't know if any of you are familiar with hot wire cutters. I started to make one this morning. I got the wire and pretty much everything to do it, but I just took a simple process since it's not going to be a whole lot to do. And I've already done one here, but it worked pretty well. Basically, I just took an old soldering iron that I used, plug-in pipe that's got the long tip on it there. And as you can see, it's been heating up and smoking already where I've used it. And basically all I did was take this is my stand that I use for my mash tun actually. Just took a piece of scrap board and measured the distance that I needed, you know, the height that'll go around the collar, which is this distance here is right at 3 7/8. And basically I'll take a piece of the board, the foam, and get this mess out of the way and push it up against that and use that as a stop. And then I'll take my soldering iron and stick down here and use the edge of the table as a guide and basically just run it through here, and that'll melt that really quick and really easy, which you can see I've already done one here. Just kind of got to take your time. So I'll cut all the side pieces to length and the front and back pieces to length, and I mean to width or height, whatever you want to call it, however it's laid out here. And then I'll cut them all to length. I'll change my little guide to whatever length I need. But yeah, it's going pretty smooth, so I'm going to knock the rest of these out, and I may set my camera up here and show you one, just a little part of what I'm doing so you can kind of get the idea. Alright, hopefully you can see this, so I'm going to try to do this one or show you a little bit of it anyway, but basically I just hold the foam up against my stop here and like I say, run my soldering iron down the edge of the wood and just take my time and let her rock and roll, and it does a really good job. So something quick and simple that I can do to hopefully improve the efficiency of my Keezer and maybe keep it from cycling so much. It can't hurt, so hopefully it will help and maybe keep that thing from cycling so much. I would, you know, I don't know what a normal cycle period is for those things. I've read people's threads on Homebrew Talk and other places that theirs may come on for 4 or 5 minutes and not come on again for 30 or 45 minutes, but I'd love to be able to get that. Just not so much for energy cost. I mean, I know it's cost and I should worry about that, and I guess I am concerned about energy cost, but also just to make sure the compressor don't work so hard. So there you go. Pretty quick and simple. Okay, I got all my pieces cut width-wise and not all of them to length, but I do have the sides cut to length and installed, so I just want to show you that. Really simple, and I got 2 pieces. Probably won't go any more than that. I've got enough styrofoam. I'm just going to kind of see how it goes here. But I got 2 in there and just kind of basically just pushed them into place, and you can see on this side I used wood screws to hold them in place. Pretty simple. So now I've just got to cut the front and back to length, and in the back of course I'll have to pay attention to all these wires, and I'll just kind of push it up against everything and just put my screws up towards the top here and make sure I don't screw into my wiring. And then in the front I haven't decided if I'm going to take my hoses off and try to cut the holes out and slide it over them, or I don't know. I probably won't do that. I'll probably just, I don't know what I'll do. I'll figure it out here in a minute, but I'll show you some more here when I get to that point. Finished product, and as you can see I had to put some washers in some places to keep it from busting through. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Just kind of cut around the front part here and just kind of cram some pieces in along the shanks there for the spouts, but like I say, we'll see. I don't know, it can't hurt, so hopefully it'll help insulate this thing a little better and cut down on my cycling times, so we'll see how that goes. Questions, comments, let them.